Shine with Kendell Lenice. Real. Shine with Kendell Lenice. Real talk for real people. Let's shine together.
All right, welcome to Shine with Kendell Lenice. I am your host, Kendell Lenice. Allow me to introduce myself to you just a little bit further. I am a certified transformational life coach, speaker, and author, as well as a certified meditation practitioner and content creator. I'm so glad that you decided to join me on my life podcast. On this podcast, I will educate, elevate, and entertain you with various topics. We will do live coaching, and I will hopefully give you a different perspective on some of your favorite topics and introduce you to new ones. I'm not sure how you stumbled upon this podcast. I'm just so glad you did. Before we get started, do me a favor and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening and rate if you are able to. Thank you so much once again for tuning in, and now on to this week's show. Today's show is sponsored by 617 Lip Love, Organic Lip Moisturizer Balm by Lenice. Get yours today at leniceboutique.com. This product is for men and women, and its signature flavor, eucalyptus mint. It's the bomb, y'all. Get it today at leniceboutique.com. Protect your lips, heal your lips at all costs. 617 Lip Love Organic Lip Moisturizer Balm. Get yours today at leniceboutique.com. Support Black businesses, support women-owned businesses. leniceboutique.com. All right, hello, everybody, and welcome to Shine with Kendell Lenice. I am your host, Kendell Lenice. Thank you so much for joining me every single week. Every 2 weeks, whenever you listen, thank you so much. To all my loyal listeners, I thank you so much for continuously coming back for Shine with Kendell Lenice. This is episode, I gotta look, but I've been doing this for 2.5 years, and there are so many great episodes on here. So I thank you for continuously supporting me. So I don't know if you know, but all my supporters, the people who have been riding with me, I call them my cuties with a K. And my cuties are my supporters. If you just stumbled upon this podcast and you don't even know how you got here, thank you so much. I'm just glad you did. Do me a favor, wherever you're listening to this podcast, please give feedback, subscribe, follow, leave a comment if you want me to talk about certain issues or topics as far as life coaching and betterment of thine self, because this podcast is all about education, elevation, and entertainment. So guess what I'm doing? So podcast people who are listening to me and the YouTube people who are seeing me, I am live on YouTube right now doing this episode of Shine with Kendell Lenice. Now, as you know, the audio is on YouTube already, and you can catch the podcast everywhere, but I may start doing a visual so that people can see me do the podcast and hear me. So you can hear me in your car while you're driving. If you're sitting home in the bathroom, at the gym, wherever, you'll be able to see me. All right. So I just want to talk about communication. But before we get started, as always, I'm going to start with this week's life note. Before I even get with that, I want to check in on you. How are you all doing? COVID is still spreading. I have some friends right now who have COVID. I don't want to reveal them, but it's a whole family. You know who you are if you're listening. I love you all so much, and I pray that you get better. Now, this is the thing. So many people think COVID is gone because you're vaccinated. So what happened is, I think a lot of people just stopped wearing masks because they thought vaccination meant invincible, and it doesn't. And now we have the new variant out, and it's coming with force. So what I want to encourage everyone to do is just still wear your mask. I don't know about you, but I'm staying masked up. You heard what I said? I'm staying masked up. I don't care about a vaccination. I don't care about a non-mask factor. I'm wearing my mask at all times. I went somewhere today. They were like, "You got your mask on." I was like, "Abso-freaking-lutely. I'm going to keep my mask on. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to do what I can. And I pray that you all do what you can. I saw a couple of people on social media and some friends' pages that passed away due to COVID complications. And super producer Chucky Thompson did of COVID complications. And he is the one of the producers and the writers behind Mary J. Blige, My Life, and Faith Evans, Soon as I Get Home, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He worked for Bad Boy, and he was a bad boy. So R.I.P. to Chucky Thompson. All right, so this week we're talking about 4 types of communication. And as always, I'm going to start with this week's Life Note. All right, it's time for this week's Life Note. All right, so this week's Life Note. So if you're just tuning in for the first time, the Life Note is the quote that will carry you through this show, through this week and beyond. This week's Life Note is the biggest communication problem is we do not listen to understand. We listen to reply. Now, I know you've heard this plenty of times. Most people listen to respond or to reply other than listening to the heart of what someone's trying to say or the mind of what someone's trying to say. People do this in friendships, people do this in relationships, and people do this within family. And I've experienced all of them with friendships, with relationships, and with family, both on both sides, where I might have been listening to respond, or I might have wanted someone to listen and before they responded. So everyone has been on both sides of this non-communication side of things, if you will. And let me see. All right, sorry about that. But everybody has been on the side of that, trying to figure out communication and how to do it and thinking that they're doing it and they're really not doing it. And I think it's fine time that we start communicating effectively. It's very important that we do that because people aren't being heard. People aren't being recognized for what they're saying. And, you know, I think so many things can change or transform in relationships if people just listen. Now, I'm not just talking about romantic relationships. I'm talking about all kinds of relationships. So today I want to talk about 4 styles of communication. Everyone has their own communication style, even if they don't know how to communicate or they're yelling and screaming or cutting off or accusing or thinking they know what someone else is going to say or not listening or blah, 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 or doing something, you know, other than actually active listening. Everyone's experienced that. And sometimes those people are us or those are the people around us. Either way, you know, this is an issue with a lot of people. And I think if we are able to understand and able to really listen and know how to communicate and know what your communication style is, you might not even know what your communication style is. And that might be part of the problem. I think everyone deserves effective communication. All right. So everyone has their unique version, right? Or their unique style of communication. There are 4 basic communication styles: passive, aggressive, passive aggressive, and assertive. I'm going to repeat them. So 4 types that we're going to talk about today: passive, then aggressive, third passive aggressive, and assertive. It's important to understand each communication style and how people decide to communicate. So the definition of communication is the act of giving, receiving, and sharing information. In other words, talking or writing and listening or reading. Good communicators listen carefully, speak or write clearly, and respect different opinions. So let's just start right there. I had a conversation today with a family member. The communication was horrible, right? That person did not respect a different view or opinion. So sometimes people talk and speak and think that they're right. So a couple of things prompted me to want to really talk about communication on this episode of Shine with Kendell Lenice, especially the 4 types of communication, because I think it's so important that we understand how we communicate and how we show up in the world, how we show up in different experiences in our lives, because we have to get to the point to realize that, you're not exempt from maybe communicating in an ineffective way. We've all been there. So we have to extend grace to other people as far as their communication styles, and then we have to extend grace to ourselves. But plain and simple, we have to learn how to communicate and really take ownership of how we communicate and want to change that. I've seen effective communication work where people speak, the other person is silent, then the other person is listening. And as a life coach of 20 years, I have done relationship coaching. I have done family coaching. I have done, workplace coaching, where it's like team building. I have been invited into corporations and trying to help people communicate. That doesn't mean I'm a perfect communicator. What that means is I know the steps, and sometimes we all fall short, right? But it has to come to a point where you take ownership of how you communicate and want to change it. Now, if you have people in your life that don't want to change their communication style, then that's going to be a challenge too, whether it's at work, whether it's in your relationship, or whether you're talking to family. That might be a problem if the other person is not working on their communication style and taking ownership. Even when I spoke to that particular person today, actually 2 people, some people don't understand that they have work to do, and it's not about everyone else. Sometimes it's about how you communicate and your responses to how you communicate. So if you see a pattern if you're communicating with someone, right, and everybody is responding the same way, then it's not everybody else, it's you. So then you have to look at you and see how, and be intentional about how you communicate. And then make sure that you're not doing the same thing in other places to communicate. And it's so important. It's something that's learned. Some people it's easy to do, and then some people it's very difficult to do. So let's start with step 1, passive communication. Okay, so do you guys know what passive communication is? Well, I'll tell you. That's what you're here for. Passive communication is a style in which individuals have developed a pattern of avoiding expressing their emotions and feelings, protecting their rights, and identifying and meeting their needs. As a result, passive individuals do not respond overtly to hurtful or anger-inducing situations. So, this is a style which individuals have developed a pattern of avoiding expressing their opinions or feelings. All right, let's sit in that for a moment. So some people communicate by not communicating and being passive. They don't want to express how they feel or their opinion. Now, when this happens with people, sometimes they don't want to do that because possibly they might have been shut down. So they might have tried to communicate before in the past. And then once they did that, they were shut down, they were dismissed, or they were made to feel like whatever they were saying didn't matter. or they were prejudged, or whatever case may be. So someone might have had a different style of communication, and then they turned into a passive communicator. So that's the first one. And if you are one of these, let me know. Let me know in the comments wherever you're watching, and let me know out of the 4, what type of communicator are you? All right. So the next one is aggressive communicator. So aggressive communicator is totally different and the opposite of passive. So when you think of aggressive, what do you think? Aggressive communication is a style in which individuals express their feelings and opinions and advocate for the needs in the way that violates the rights of others. Thus, aggressive communicators are verbally or physically abusive. Aggressive communicators will often try and dominate the conversation. So you can be an abuser by just speaking over somebody, talking louder than them, taking over the conversation. Somebody else can be talking and maybe their voice is like this, they're a little softer, or they're talking like this, and somebody's like, la, 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 like talking over you. It doesn't have to be an argument. It just is an aggressive form of communication where they're speaking loudly and over you, and they don't allow the other person to speak. So have you ever been in that situation where you're trying to communicate with someone and someone totally is taking over the conversation, or they're being extra aggressive with how they're doing it, to the point where you might turn into a passive communicator because you're like, what's the point? This person is more of an aggressive communicator, and how am I going to be able to get through to that person because they're so aggressive? Now, aggressive doesn't mean necessarily a bad thing, but it's the way that someone communicates. It doesn't make them a bad person. It might be a communication style that they were taught. So the first one we had is passive communicator. We have an aggressive communicator. And now third is a passive aggressive communicator. So passive aggressive communication is a style in which individuals appear passive on the surface, but are really acting out of anger in a subdued, indirect, or behind the scenes way. Instead, they express their anger by subtly undermining the object of their resentments. So there are a lot of people that are passive communicators, right? They try to act like they may appear, they act like they're being passive, and that's an act, but it's really an act of anger. So it's a subtle, indirect way to be aggressive, pretty much. So some people are passive aggressive. They're acting like nothing's wrong, or this is that, but they're really underlining is anger behind that. So that's passive aggressive. That is the third style. So then we have assertive, which I think is moi, and I'm going to talk about it. And you tell me, what type of communicator are you? Because everybody can't handle this style of all these different styles of communication, because everybody is not the same when it comes to even listening. And we'll talk about that, because listening is a form of communication, but that's not the 4 styles. So the 4th is assertive, means expressing your point of view in a way that is clear and direct, while still respecting others. Communication in the assertive manner can help minimize conflict. You know why it minimizes it? Because you're direct. So assertive communicating is expressing your thoughts and feelings and opinions in a way that makes your views and needs clearly understood by others without putting down their thoughts, feelings, or opinions. So that's assertive. So you may not be trying to hurt someone's feelings. Doesn't mean that you don't hurt their feelings. You may not be trying to deliberately hurt someone's feelings, and you do. That happens all the time. I've hurt people's feelings and didn't try because I'm very direct and very honest. And sometimes it may come off wrong. And that's how you have to look at yourself, right? You have to know yourself. You have to know your communication style, and you have to kind of tweak it for certain people if they have different types of communication styles. Like some people don't know how to handle very assertive and direct people, and some might say, okay, well, that's rude. Because a lot of people don't like to hear the truth. And then when they hear it in a direct way and it's not a pussyfooting around way, then it might come off rude, even if you're not trying to be rude, but you're expressing your thoughts and feelings and opinions in a way that makes your views and needs clearly understood. Like if you say, I want strawberries, right? There's no way to not understand what I said. I want strawberries. Now, if you have a different type of, if I say I want strawberries, right? Somebody might be like, why you say it like that? Well, you could have said, it would be nice if I have some strawberries. Somebody might not. Or somebody might be like, I don't like strawberries. Well, why you got to say it like that? No, I'm not saying it like that. I'm just saying I don't like strawberries. Well, you didn't have to say it like that. That's a communication issue. And someone might take offense to something when you're just saying, I don't like strawberries. I happen to like strawberries, though. They're good for you. But you get what I'm saying? So sometimes people's styles cause an issue and a problem within their communication styles. So I named 4 communication styles right there. Let me know, which one are you? Are you a passive communicator? Are you an aggressive communicator? Are you a passive aggressive communicator? Are you a assertive communicator? We're going to take a quick break, but I want to know, what type of communicator are you? So wherever you're listening, or if you're watching the live, hey YouTube, I am live. Even though the audio podcast will be on YouTube as well. Now you can see me. I can't see you, but you can see me. So I'm going to take just a quick break and I'll be right back. Thank you for shining with me, Kendell Lenice. If you're here for the very first time, thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to the show and don't forget to tell your friends and family about Shine. We'll be right back. Are you stuck in an unhappy relationship or a dead-end job? Are you having difficulty moving to the next level in life? Are you looking for love or romance? Are you looking to achieve and accomplish your goals? Are you looking to get more clarity on your vision? Do you struggle with self-esteem? Are you looking for insight, trying to figure out what you're trying to do with your life? These are some of the things I can help you with. Hi, my name is Kendell Lenice, and I'm a certified transformational life coach. For more information about my life coaching services, please visit Livingtruelivingyou.com. Now back to the show. Now back to the show. Hey y'all, I am back. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Make sure wherever you're listening to your podcast, subscribe. If you can subscribe, leave a comment if you can do that. And if you want me to tackle a topic, make sure you email me at KendellLenice@gmail.com. And I will respond to your email and I will talk about what you want me to talk about. But today we are talking about communication, and we spent the first part of this show talking about 4 styles of communication. So now I want to talk about the listening part of communication. So as a life coach, in our training, which I've had a number of times and brush up on it, listening as a life coach is 80-something% of my job, right? My job is not to do the speaking or talking. I do that when I'm speaking on a stage or talking to you all or something else. But in a life coaching session, my job is not to speak. My job, or speak the most. My job is to listen more than I speak within that, because if you're speaking, then you can't hear. So if someone is paying you to coach them, you have to hear what they need, right? Because if you don't hear what they need, then you cannot assist them in my profession. Now let's talk about in real life. You cannot hear if you're not listening, or you cannot listen if you're not hearing. And if you're speaking while someone is talking, then how are you supposed to get what they're saying? You can't just imagine or guess what they're saying. You have to actually hear, and you have to actually listen. So what should be done is to repeat, just so you understand. I need you to take out the dog. I don't have a dog. So someone would say, what you need me to do is take out the dog? Absolutely. Now, if I say I need you to take out the dog, and you're on your phone, or you're watching TV, or you're listening to music, or you're just in another world in your head, and I said I need you to take out the dog, and I'm like, what did I say? Oh, I don't know, because you're not actively listening. How many times does that happen? If you're on your phone and somebody is talking to you, you don't hear them because you might be playing a game on your phone, you might be scrolling through TikTok, you might be doing something and someone is speaking to you. So that means you're not actively listening, or you might got a lot going on in your mind and you're not really tuned in, you're tuned out. So then the person is like, well, you didn't hear me? I said that 3 times. They're like, no, I didn't hear you. That happens a lot, more than you think. That happens a lot, because now we are in an age where people ain't paying attention. They're on their phones doing everything, whether they're working, whether they're scrolling, whether they're playing games, whether they're writing a paper, whatever they're doing. People are not present in what's happening around them. So what happens is people get into issues and problems and arguments because folks ain't listening. And that becomes an issue if somebody is talking and they need to be heard. And then what happens sometimes, like, you didn't say that. Be like, yes, I did. You just wasn't listening. Parents go through that. Spouses go through that. You got to be able to listen. So listening is the ability to accurately receive and interpret a message in the communication process. Listening is key to all effective communication. Without the ability to listen effectively, messages are easily misunderstood. If there is one communication skill you should aim to master, is listening. Y'all need me to say that again? I'm going to say it again. Listening. And this is from skillsyouneed.com. I love that. So listening is key to all effective communication. Without the ability to listen effectively, messages are easily misunderstood. If there is one communication skill you should aim to master, is listening. Now, everybody got a problem listening. At one point or another, everybody got a problem listening. Why? Because people want people to hear them and understand them, right? So listening is a part of that, and a lot of people don't realize that. So some key components to listening is the process involves 5 stages of listening. Now, this is common knowledge. This is everywhere. If you want more understanding of this, then I definitely think that you should do research on listening. All right, so let's see. There's so many different views. All right. So let's talk about the 5 components to listening. Just lost it. Where'd it go? Let's start with, what do I want to start with? Give me 1 second. What do I want to start with? I just had it. Okay. 4 types of listening. Number 1, deep listening. Deep listening occurs when you're committed to understanding the speaker's perspective. When you're committed to understanding the speaker's perspective. Now, think about yourself. Are you committed to understanding the speaker's perspective? Or are you just waiting to give your perspective? Think about it, because I want everyone to grow, right? I want everyone to recognize what's going on with them and how they communicate with others, because you're not living on this earth alone, right? You got to communicate with somebody, whether they're in your house, outside your house, at your job, at the family reunion. You're going to have to communicate with others, right? So if you're communicating with others, you need to understand how you communicate with them. The second style or type of listening is full listening. Full listening involves paying close and careful attention to what the speaker is conveying. So that's different from number 1. So number 1 is deep listening. Deep listening occurs when you're committed to understanding the speaker's perspective. Number 2 is full listening, when it involves paying close attention and careful to what the speaker is conveying. So number 1 is understanding what the speaker is saying, and then also how they're conveying what they're saying. Right? And number 3 is critical listening. So are you listening to really get it and comprehend and understand? Or are you listening to speak? Because when you're critically listening, it's to evaluate and analyze. So if I say the bridge is a mile long, and many people get stuck on that bridge, right? So are you critically listening? Are you evaluating like, so what she's saying is the bridge is a mile long and there are many accidents on there. You're really actually listening and critically thinking about what just came out of my mouth. That's critical listening. The next one is therapeutic or empathetic listening. At the University of Baltimore, in my major, before I got my degree, a class that I electively took was an empathy class. And it was the first time that they gave that class. And with my degree in human services and professional helping, and then I'm a certified life coach, that is what I like to do. And what I do, what I'm called to do. I truly believe that. And I took that empathy class, and guess when the empathy class was? It was around the time of Freddie Gray. Now, if you don't know who Freddie Gray is, I know you know Mike Brown and now George Floyd, Freddie Gray, and so many. I would sit here all day naming all the people that got killed by the police. Freddie Gray was in Baltimore, and I went to University of Baltimore. And I was getting my second degree there. And during that time, when I was 47 years old, hello, it's never too late to remix your life. Go back to school if you want to. I wasn't 47 then. I got that second degree at 47. So that was a little before that, but not that much. I was in my 40s. And Freddie Gray, that's what was happening. So outside of our classroom, people were protesting for Freddie Gray. Now, this is in my empathy class, right? So, of course, that made for a great conversation and just the different ways to just express empathy. Now, we're not saying with the cops, right? But we're just talking. It just took us in different ways. And I just thought that was interesting. I will never forget that class and what was happening in that class. But therapeutic or empathetic listening is listening to understand feeling and emotion. Listening to understand feeling and emotion. Now, when some people communicate, they may not communicate effectively, right? They might want to be heard. Everybody wants their words to be valued. Everyone wants someone to listen to them. But are you therapeutically listening? Are you listening with an empathetic ear? Listening to understand feelings and emotion is so important when you're listening. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't listen in that way. They listen to judge. They listen to ridicule. They listen to object. They listen to count out. They listen to doubt. They listen to nothing because they ain't listening, right? So to listen, we need to make a conscious effort to actually hear what someone is saying, be able to digest it, be able to understand it, be able to repeat it, be able to understand somebody's experience and empathize with what they're saying, opposed to trying to object to everything. Now, active listening, you've often heard, right? Hopefully. In life coaching, I always talk about active listening. Now, if you are communicating with someone, anyone, and you're trying to communicate effectively and that other person or persons are not communicating effectively, that's going to be an issue or a problem, and you're not going to get anywhere as far as the communication. Both parties, groups, individuals have to know how to effectively communicate. That's not slamming the phone down. You can't even slam the phone down now. Like back in the day, you could slam the phone down. I don't want to listen. I'm going to slam the phone down. And you had that effect. It's not there anymore. So you can hang up on somebody. You can ignore somebody. You cannot answer the phone, answer the door, answer the call. You can tune somebody out, not hear them. Then that shows that that person is not ready to communicate, or maybe they don't know how to communicate, or maybe they don't want to communicate. Then you might have the other person that's ready to communicate, ready to talk about it. You know, you always have that one like, well, let's talk about it. Let's try to do. Then you have the other person that doesn't want to communicate. Both parties have to be willing to communicate. So I think it's important, even with this podcast, if your cousin, sister, mama, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, sister, brother, if you're having a challenge communicating, then please listen to this podcast and please share this, because communication is so important, but both people have to want to communicate. And if they don't communicate, then it's a problem. So different ways to communicate effectively is really paying attention. Be an active listener, be ready to listen and communicate. And to show that you're listening, you repeat it. So what you're saying is this. Okay, I understand that. I'm sorry you feel that way. I really want to hear what you have to say. Really let the person know that you're actively listening. And then you're giving little nuggets to show that you have been listening. And listening is not about judging, going against what someone is saying, waiting to oppose or their facts or their counteract what they're saying. It's really to hear them. And some people judge so much then they don't even hear the person, and that causes a problem. Now, once you're listening and once you're hearing, then you want to make sure you repeat it, and you want to make sure, see, this is the thing. When some people are communicating, right? You have someone else responding maybe in a different way. because they're not listening completely to what the person is saying, or they're on guard or on defense, because maybe their communication style is different from your communication style. And that ends up being an issue or a problem. Now, we know there's a difference between hearing and listening. All right, so let's talk about that. The definition of hearing has more to do with the psychological act in hearing the sounds, like it's audible. Like, when you do the hearing test, can you hear? Yes. I remember when my daughters were in school, or they had their exams, and the nurses would be like, Mom, your children can hear just fine. I'd be like, I know they can. So if they pretended like they don't hear you, that's because they ain't listening or don't want to hear you. But ain't nothing audibly wrong with their ears. They can hear sounds, they can hear voices, they can hear you speaking. And listening means you're paying attention to that sound. Boom. You're paying attention to that sound. So that sound could be wah, 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 like Charlie Brown's teacher, or it can be, please take out the trash. Are you listening? Are you hearing? And they might pretend that it's Charlie Brown's teacher and they're not listening. But paying attention to the sounds, to hear something with thoughtful attention and give it consideration. If it could be all so simple, then if it could be simple, but that's not simple for a lot of people. So attentive listening, responsive listening, and active listening, it will help you understand and be able to communicate with whoever you're communicating with. Why do you think it's so hard for people to communicate? Or, what is the problem? Tell me what you think in the comments, or make a comment. But communication is very difficult for a lot of people. And guess what? They don't even know it. You have to really pay attention, because guess what? Most people think nothing's wrong with them. Most people think that it's not them, it's you. It ain't me, it's you. That's what people think. And that's so arrogant to think in that way, that it's always someone else. It has to be. I had like 2 conversations in coaching about 2 different people, different walks of life. One was a male, one was a female. And these people always think it's somebody else. If only they did this. If only you did that. If only you. And I had to say, well, what about you? Why is it everybody else? What about you? When you see that, it comes from a couple places. They're hurt. They're not used to being heard, or they're used to being right, or they just don't give a care about what you're saying because it's about what they have to say. And that's not effective communication. But somebody's going to have to want to change their style of communication. If they don't want to change their style of communication, then that's going to be a problem. And then they're going to continuously have problems with certain types of people. They might not have problems with everybody, because if they're an aggressive communicator and they're talking to a passive communicator, they're not going to have a problem with that person, because that passive communicator is not going to jump out at the aggressive one. So if you're an aggressive type of communicator, right? And you're talking to someone who's meeker or who's milder, you're not going to have an issue communicating with that problem, because that person is going to bow down to the aggressive person. So the aggressive person is going to be like, I communicate fine. I communicate with everybody, because they're not used to having the same type of communicators then. Now, if you have an aggressive communicator and another aggressive communicator, they're going to go like this. They're going to ram into each other, because they're communicating the same way. So you can have communication styles that are similar that work, or you can have communication styles that are like 2 bulls coming together. And somebody is going to have to communicate differently. And that's where life coaching comes in, and therapy and counseling and reading books and trying to understand who you are. Instead of trying to fix everyone else, the first person you need to fix is you. Hello, somebody. That's a word. All right. So as I wind down, I want to talk about, I just want to wrap it all up in a bow. So communication is the act of giving, receiving, and sharing information. I want to go back to the definition. So the definition of communication, and this is broad news. This is broad of the broad definition. So you can find this definition anywhere, is the act of giving, receiving, and sharing information. The other definition is imparting or exchanging of information or news, right? Communicating. So good communicators listen carefully and respect different opinions. I started with that and I want to end with that. Good communicators listen carefully and respect different opinions. Now, if we can all respect each other's opinions and views and not try to change them, not try to judge them, then we will have communication down to a science with someone. And the last thing is you got to recognize how you're communicating. If you're not ready to recognize how you're communicating, you're not recognizing ways that you can grow and be better. And at the end of the day, we all want to grow and be better. We all have room to be better. So it's okay if you don't know how to communicate now, or you're listening to this or watching and saying, dang, I can't communicate. It's okay. We all have room to be better. All right, y'all. I did this on YouTube. Hey, YouTube. And if you're listening, hey, my regular audio, I love that because I like listening to podcasts both ways. I like to see. And some of them, I just want to hear the voice. I don't need to see. I need to hear. So just like we have different styles of communication, we have different styles of learning and different ways that we like to do things. We're all different, and that's what makes us special. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Shine with Kendell Lenice. I am, of course, Kendell Lenice. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Leave comments. If you're listening, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Kendell Lenice. I'm trying to grow that thing. I'm trying to be able to do big things in this communication world. So definitely do that. And follow me on all social media platforms at Kendell Lenice. Thank you for listening. Remember, you are a star, so don't allow anyone to dim your shine. Until next time, God bless. Peace.
Shine with Kendell Lenice. Real talk for real people. Let's shine together.